All right, so we are back right now. We're halfway through the draft. A few surprises that have happened with a quarterback being taken from Washington a little bit earlier than I think most people thought. Joined with us right now joining us is Randy Meade. So he's going to be talking all things Seahawks, and so there are going to be on the clock here in just a bit. What do you think, Randy, are some of the things the Seahawks need to do going forward?
Well, I'm really excited about my team this year. I think this is going to be our year. So, and looking at what holes we can fill, I think on the the defensive side of the ball on the front seven. So we need an edge rusher. A defensive tackle would be nice, but I'm also considering. I'm going to see what this last pick is, but an offensive tackle could be strong for us. So I'm thinking on the line, either defensively or on an offensive line.
Yeah, well, and right now we've got the Colts that are on the clock, I believe, and so they got about 5 minutes before. You got a new coach now. What do you think about the new era? What do you think is going to be the identity now?
Well, I like the pick. I like Mike McDonald. I think he's a defensive coach. He comes with a defensive background, and as I think we've seen, defense wins championships. So I'm excited what we have in store coming up.
Well, you look at how Seattle grew and started dominating when they got the Legion of Boom. It all started on the defensive end. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do. Let's see. We've got a few people that have fallen. Are you thinking more D tackle, or are you thinking edge, or what are you thinking?
With Mike McDonald being there, I think that we're maybe going to lead towards the defensive side of the ball. And are you wanting me to make my pick, or are we just kind of seeing what's going on here?
Well, what do you think? What do you think they'll take?
Well, I think with that defensive emphasis, I'm thinking edge rusher. And for me, I like Latu from UCLA.
Oh, you think he's the best? Yeah, some people are saying that.
Yeah.
You've got a couple pass rushers still available. Halfway through the first round, usually they're taken right at the top. But because of quarterbacks and tackles and whatnot have been so good in this draft, that things have fallen. And so they might have an opportunity to get that. They got Turner you can get.
Yep.
So you got a couple choices. So, I mean, obviously we still have the Colts up right now. So see what they pick. But if you like both of those, you get one. Or do you think Seattle history tells us in the past, they used to trade out a lot of times. Do you think they'll want more picks, or do you think they want to go for the premium spot?
That's a possibility. They might move out and try to sort of build what they have for the future, but I'm thinking they're going to take this pick. I think they want to build it now, and we want to win now. So I'm hoping that they stay here and then take that selection. And like you said, there's more defensive players on the board than we thought. There's been a lot of offensive picks, and I was kind of holding out hope that we might get a quarterback, but at this point, it's not looking like that's an option. So.
What do you think of Penix going so early?
I was surprised by that. I think local guy, he might have been a good fit if he was still available for our first pick, but they must have known something that maybe we don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you watch things and you scratch your head going, what are they doing? But like you said, they know more than we do. They've watched millions of hours. But also we see draft picks that you wonder what they're thinking, and it's confirmed afterwards when it doesn't work out and GMs get fired. But in the end, it all depends on, do they produce or do they not produce? And so it will be interesting. What do you think are the strengths of the Seahawks?
I think the Seahawks have a history of just playing tough on defense. And sometimes that's been because our offense wasn't very good. So, back thinking when the offense was operating at full tilt with Russ and, we were doing some really good things and we had the Legion of Boom on defense. That was great. Now what, Pete, I think brought a toughness and a competitiveness that has been a strength and an identity of the team. And so I'm hoping with Mike McDonald coming in, we can continue that and maybe even take that a step further this season.
Yeah, they're definitely, they start on the back end. You've got your cornerbacks set. And what do you think of the drafts recently? You guys nailed the draft way back in the day, and that changed everything. When you got Earl Thomas and when you got Sherman cheap and you had Russell Wilson and all these people cheap, it changed everything. And then you guys had a drought there for a while, and it kind of felt, and then the last couple of years, you've nailed it again. What do you think of those previous draft picks with the cornerbacks and tackle. I mean, you got Cross, who started right off as your tackle. You got a running back. I mean, you guys have done really well recently.
Yeah. I like how we've been building that foundation, and this pick's coming in here soon, but we've got some good stuff going. We've had some success, and I feel like we're going to continue that this season, and the picks that we're going to have this year, I think, are going to really help us.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting to see. It does look like the Colts pick are in. I always like watching the draft because when they show the draft room, every time they show it, and when they realize they're on camera, they all clap. They're always happy. But behind the scenes, there's probably 60% are arguing for one person, and 40% or whatever are saying, no, take this person, but they all have to clap and look in unison.
Yeah, and that's part of being in an organization and on a team is once you make that pick, you gotta make the best out of it, even if it wasn't what you were hoping for. And for me, I wish there was a few players still on the board here, but whoever we end up with, we're gonna move forward and make the best out of it.
Yeah. Where do you think Seattle will fall right now going forward in the NFC West? Where do you think they'll land?
It's hard to say. There's some tough teams there, and year to year, sometimes there's surprises. But I think, I think expectations might be a little low for us coming in. But I would say the middle of the pack. But we could surprise some people depending on how this draft plays out, and some of our young guys step up. We could make an impact.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is if you nail the draft and you get key positions for cheap, like you got your left tackle who's on a rookie contract, you got your cornerbacks. Those are high-paid people. And so last year they played really well. I mean, I think they did better than I thought they were going to do, and they were in it. And, at the end, they didn't probably reach exactly what they wanted, but I think they overachieved for a lot of what a lot of teams thought.
Yep.
And they
looks
did
like they
really
got my
well.
guy there. They got my guy, so
he's off the board.
Yeah.
So the Colts got
That's
him,
a
but you
tough
still
pick.
have another edge rusher out there. Turner's
We do,
still
we
available.
do.
Who some people have him rated higher. But
yeah,
he's
coming out of Alabama, he's proven himself there against some tough competition.
Well, the one thing about him is he did have the medical retired early on in his career, and so he was done. And then he went back and got a second opinion, and they came back and said, okay, I think he's good, and he was able to play. But whenever you have that in your history at the NFL level, I mean, I don't know how many teams have said, okay, we're going to take a chance on this guy. His knee's bad, but I think if we give him a year's rest and then they keep him, and 2 years later they're releasing him. So he's a real gamble. You could have high reward, Ladu, but you also
durability's huge, and he's 6'4", 260. That's a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think durability is big. I played with a guy named Michael Ruse that played for the Tennessee Titans, played several years in the NFL, and he never had any injuries, and he 6'7", and coming out, he played several years at left tackle, and I think durability is key, and that was one thing that he had, and so I think that's one thing that they're looking for is injuries and how guys have produced and come along in college, because a lot of times those things will come back and bite them when they get into the NFL, because there's a lot of pounding that they take week in and week out in the NFL.
And it's if you're already you getting beat up at college, when you go to the pros, it's a whole different. Now you got 330 pounders that are running 5 second 40s, and it's just what they can rep. It's amazing what they've got, and so you want to be at full strength. So hopefully, I mean, he did play and he seemed like he did well. Hopefully that was in the past. But when you hear medically retired, it's got to be a red flag to at least consider.
Yeah, and that's something to consider as well. And just kind of how will he adapt to the elements? Playing in California, that's one thing about playing in the Northwest. It's different playing up in Seattle. It's cold, and I think that's an advantage that we have. And so we want guys that are going to last and have that toughness. And I think Coach Pete did a good job of coaching that. And I'm hoping that will be in this next era as well.
Now, you played college football?
Yes.
What position did you play?
Yeah, I started out on the defensive line and then transitioned over to play center after that, my final 4 years. So switched from the defensive line to the offensive line.
And what did you like better? Totally different position. So you're kind of as a center, you're the quarterback of the offensive line. But what did you like better, offense or defense?
I like defense better, the aggressive nature of it. And that was one of the advantages I had on offense, because they moved me over there and I had more of a defensive mentality.
Yeah.
And so they liked that on the offensive line. And my offensive line coach, Aaron Best, was very aggressive, and so he liked that. And he's now the head coach at Eastern Washington. So
Oh, wow.
he had an intensity about him, and he liked for us to play that way as well.
Yeah. Well, now is your experience on the defensive line influencing your desire for a pick for the Seahawks as wanting somebody on the defensive line, or is it just what you think the Seahawks need?
Well, I think it's a mixture of things. I think the defense is so important in the NFL, and we've seen that. You know what? But even as this pick's coming up, and my guy from UCLA is off the board, I'm actually gonna maybe change my suggestion up, if that's okay.
Yeah, you can do that. We allow that here. You got to be flexible.
My second pick was on the offensive line.
Oh,
And as we talked about that, I think there's some tough defenses in the league, and so I'm thinking we need an offensive tackle, and I think taking a local guy, Washington. Yeah. I'm gonna go with Big Troy.
Okay.
Fontenot out of Washington, and I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I think he could be a pillar on our offensive line. So just seeing the way the drafts went so far, and kind of where we've been on offense, I think it's going to be important to shore that up. So I'm hoping that they're going to go with him.
Okay, then that gives you 2 solid tackles for maybe the next 5, 10 years if you get the second contract. Then you have the cornerback set, and you'd be sitting well. So it will be interesting to see, what's it say, 3 minutes to go before the Seahawks pick is in. And so it doesn't look at this point like they're trading out. So they used to do this every year.
Yeah.
We'd watch, and I'd see Seahawk fans excited. And that says looks like the pick is in.
And we are excited. I mean, I think there's a level of excitement with Seahawks fans, and that's a commitment to their team and to our team that you don't see for a lot of organizations. And so there's a lot of optimism in the organization, I think, and where we're headed. So
whenever you get a new coach, there's like a new fresh start. And Pete Carroll was such an iconic figure and did so many wonderful things. So I'm sure there's a lot of mixed emotion seeing him go.
Yeah.
But when you get somebody new, it's just, I don't know, it's new. It's like Christmas time. It's like, what are we going to get? What are we going to see? And you just think you have all these expectations, and the bar is raised because you don't really know where it's going to be. But you have some cornerstones there, so it will be interesting to see what they do. But I know in the past I've had we've watched the draft, and with Seahawks fans, they're excited, and they sit and they wait 3 hours for their pick when they were doing really well, and then they'd trade out. And then the next year they'd come back and it'd be like, okay, here we are. We're going to pick in the first round. And they wait 3.5 hours because they're a little further down in the draft. And then they trade out. But
yeah, there's some disappointment there.
But, it's interesting. In the draft, I was seeing something. They talked about the players that have the highest success rates of getting second contracts in the first round. Do you know the number one position that has the highest success rate? It's center at 92%.
Wow.
And the worst is wide receiver. And I think it was like 30% or something like that.
Wow.
So I always wonder if teams are taking that in consideration, that wide receiver is so hard to pick. But like a center position seems like if you get that person, you can tell more likely that they are going to succeed. And that's pretty significant. So I wonder how much that weighs into what teams do.
I think it does. And center doesn't get as much publicity as a lot of positions do, and I think it's an integral part to the offensive success to have a signal caller there that the quarterback trusts, the offensive line trusts. That's an important piece. And the center, is common knowledge that it is the smartest guy on the offensive line.
Right.
So not just because I was a center, but they are pretty intelligent guys.
Well, they say they're the quarterback of the line.
They are, yeah. Yeah, you have to know what's going on and be able to read the defense. And some of those big guys on the outside on the offensive line aren't as smart. So you got to be ready to
patient with them.
Yeah.
Yep. You have to talk to them the right way, because those guys on the outside are big boys. So you got to motivate them, but
fire them up once in a while, smack them in the helmet. So
I'm always interested in this. So it says the pick is in, and they say the pick is in for like a long period of time.
Yeah.
And they wait for commercials and all that kind of stuff. But I think they just like to leave.
They were looking at Turner there, so I don't know if they maybe know something that.
Yeah.
that maybe we do. I know that people are expecting that we're going to go with that defensive.
I'm surprised
defensive
Turner's
pick.
still available. He was mocked and many
Okay.
to go sooner, much sooner. A lot of people had him go to Denver and different things like that. Obviously, Denver went with the quarterback Bo.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do and where they go. I remember years ago, was it 2011 or something like that? I think it was Minnesota's pick. I don't know. It was one of those teams picked, and they didn't get their pick in time.
Oh.
And if you don't get it in time, the next team can immediately pick. And so the next team just said, we want our guy. And then the next team went, we want our guy. And the next, and there was like 3 or 4 picks later, and finally they got their pick in.
Oh, man.
And they went from whatever it was, the 7th pick to the 11th pick.
That's, yeah.
And who knows?
I've had that in my fantasy draft. I don't know if that's similar, but that's
yes.
The stakes are a little higher here. So, but that can be a bad feeling when you start dropping on the board.
Yeah. I wish one day in my life, I wish I could go into a draft room and watch what they do. Because the intensity. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Draft Day, but I mean, behind the scenes, how many picks are they? Are they saying 4 different teams are trying to trade up or you're trying to trade down, but you say, okay, we're going to take this guy if nothing happens, and then they throw at you, well, we'll throw in an extra 3rd round pick, and then they have to do the draft chart, and they have to see everything. There's another commercial.
Yeah, interesting. One thing to just plug there was we were talking about centers and that importance in the quarterback position. So just this last week, Eric Meyer, who was the quarterback at Eastern Washington University while I was there, just got inducted into the Big Sky Hall of Fame. So
nice.
A big accomplishment. And I was able to play center with him for one season, his first year as a starting quarterback. So it's fun to see people get recognition down the line, and having a long-lasting career, I think, is important. So like you said, I think offensive line is very important, and just being able to protect the signal caller.
Well, here we go. It looks like they might, they only had 10 minutes to pick, but it seems like they had 20 minutes to make this selection.
Yeah, they must have been thinking about, I think there's going to be a good pick right here. Let's see what happens.
Here we go. Seahawks pick is in. The commissioner is now talking, and we'll find out if the Seahawks future continues where they've been nailing the draft the last 2 years.
It's going to be a big boy. I'm not sure which side of the ball. Let's see here.
Let's see.
Oh,
that was not expected. They went, well, so is that offensive tackle?
Defensive
tackle?
Defensive tackle.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
All right.
Byron Murphy II out of Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm surprised at that one.
Yeah.
I am surprised. And I would say that that pick would be questioned by a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't even have them on this board.
He was on my board at 19, but
19.
he is with a top-rated defensive tackle.
Yes,
so
19.
They must have felt like they needed an interior defensive lineman there.
Yeah, well, if you can stuff the run and you can get to the quarterback, if you get to the quarterback and you have the cornerbacks like you have, I mean, that's tough.
Yeah.
And
and I've seen some footage on this guy, and he's a big boy.
Yeah.
He's a run stuffer. Reminds me back in the day when we had big Cortez Kennedy.
Yeah.
We could use some size up front there on the D line.
Well, if you got a big boy up there and they clogs the middle, looks like he's got some speed too. There's nothing wrong with that.
We'll take it.